The Wheeling Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, December 18th is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our secretary is out today. Commissioner Stylen will be our secretary tonight. Commissioner Stylen, would you please call roll?
Surely. Commissioner Stylen is present. Commissioner Zangara?
Here.
Commissioner Doorband?
I'm here.
Commissioner Johnson is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Vito?
Here.
Commissioner Powers?
Here.
And Chairman Rafato.
Here. Mr. Jennings, any changes to the agenda?
The item C, I believe it is, under, should be B actually, but the Title 19 is not available for discussion. We'll just request a continuation to the first meeting in January.
Great, thank you. Consent, I'm sorry. Citizen concerns and comments. At this time, it's anyone here that wishes to speak on anything other than items for review tonight, please come forward. No? Okay, great, thank you. We do have a sign-up sheet here for any items for review if you wish to speak tonight. Thank you. Consent items. Docket number 2014-31, Laundry World 2000, boy, I'm having trouble tonight. 1201 West Dundee Road, appearance approval of a wall sign.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stylen, second by Commissioner Doorband. Mr. Secretary? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wow, you got me going there. Docket number 2014, that's why. You have to approve everything. Not just one item at a time.
And I'll also move to
Let me read it first.
2014-35.
Capital Commerce Center, 1000 Capitol Drive, appearance approval for freestanding signs. Now do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stylen, seconded by Commissioner Doorband. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stylen votes yes. Commissioner Doorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Chairman Rafato?
Yes. Items for review. Docket number 2014-22, continued from December 4th, 2014. Public hearing, Philhaven, 2418 through 2422 East Hints Road. Variation from Title 19 zoning related to covered parking. Mr. Jennings?
Thank you. This hearing was originally opened at the meeting on December 4th. The Plan Commission, after discussion that evening, requested the petitioner take a look at the proposal and investigate methods of increasing the number of covered parking stalls above the proposal that was presented that evening. In your packets, you have received the revised materials. We have also forwarded you 3 letters of support for the petition. One is from the Illinois Housing Development Authority. One is from the president of the adjacent homeowners association, and the third letter is from the deputy director of finance for the Bureau of Economic Development at Cook County. We can read them in at your request. However, they are all 3 in support of the project. As the revised proposal, each one, I believe, references the revised proposal, which is in your packet for consideration this evening.
Thank you. We don't have to read them in. Fine, great, thank you. Is there anything else, Mr. Jennings?
No, that's all I have.
Petitioner, would you like to come forward? Again, you've already been sworn in from the previous meeting, and if you can just state your name again.
Joanna Casanova with Up Development and the Very Development Group.
Great, thank you, Ms. Casanova. The floor is yours.
Thank you for considering our request again this evening. Following our last meeting, we further explored the request to relocate the carports along over the vault to the north property line, I believe, by the neighbors on the north side, correct? Although that actually solved the technical challenges on providing the carports over the vault, we believe that's still in financial hardship to the project. As previously explained, providing 50 carports to the project are estimated in the range of $500,000. That estimate was provided before taking into consideration any of the challenges as a result of the vault. So although it solved the technical difficulties, it's still a big cost impact for the project. Again, this is a project that will serve the disabled. And in our experience and the data that we have in other projects, the use is very minimal for vehicles. We anticipate here potentially about 12 vehicles of the 50 units. With these in mind, providing 50 carports, again, it's an added cost that may be best used elsewhere within the building. As noted by the IDA and Cook County, these financial resources and previously discussed are federal resources very scarce, and all of us would like to best utilize them. So we are here this evening, given the financial hardship of providing 50 to 51 carports, which are required by code and were previously approved, to modify our request to propose 28 stalls. The way we arrive at these quantity and also location is we took in consideration your concerns. We looked at our site, the way the proposed parking was already approved. The parking on the east side we discussed is over the vault. It's very technically challenged to keep them there. On the north side, we explore it, but we remember our conversations with the neighbors where we committed to avoid providing parking in this area and instead provide the land banking here to avoid proximity of vehicles to our neighbors to the north. This has been, again, conveyed through the support letter from Lake Villas Association. If we shift them here, this will require a site plan modification that we don't necessarily want to pursue given our prior commitments with our neighbors. Now, in order to try to still provide the amenities intended by the code to provide covered parking to our residents, we are offering to cover in the entire aisle in the middle and then also provide covered parking for the handicap spaces. This is 28 spaces. We will believe that will provide some financial relief. We're providing approximately 53% of the requirement. We will provide the amenity to our residents so that they have covered parking from when they park to when they get to the building. And we believe that will be more than sufficient for the use of the project. We're this evening respectfully requesting that you consider our modified variance request in order to make these a financially successful project and also for the stability of the operations of the project long term. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
We will in a second. This is a public hearing. If anybody wishes to speak on this matter, please come forward. Oh, we have some names on there.
Thank you. Phil Nastasio.
Hi there.
Good evening. Thanks.
Excuse me, 1 second.
Sure.
Please raise your right hand. Do you
sir.
swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you could give your name and address to our secretary here, so she has it recorded. Thank you.
Absolutely. Phil Nastasio, MOS-PACCIO, 3121 Jackson Drive. Wheeling.
And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Don't need it. Thank you for the opportunity to address a variation. Covered parking is a village requirement from the first day these people set sites on building in Wheeling. It was in the plan that they had to take to a federal judge to get approved when the village decided that their location was not suitable for their project. Now, because somebody realized they might not have enough money from the state to do it, they want to redo on the requirements. I believe that not all the people living in this facility will have cars, but that's not the point. What does the village do with this building that doesn't meet their own code if it's used for a different purpose sometime in the future? What does the village do with the next developer who decides something in our code is not in his budget and uses this as a test case You know, I can't afford that. You guys gave them a mulligan, you know? And the fact that would say, I watched the hearing from last time, the fact that somebody would say, you better let us go on this carport thing or quality may suffer somewhere else in the project is ridiculous. I watched that part 4 times. It didn't change. It didn't get any easier. And it tells me that the building inspectors are going to want to sharpen their pencils when they come take a look at this construction project. Because that just wasn't right to say. It was not right to come up here and say that. For the record, the people that live in this area, and I'm one of them, have no ill will towards the people that'll be our neighbors, no matter what was misconstrued and taken out of context during the application process. It was our only fear is that this project will be inadequately staffed once the petitioner goes on to other projects in other suburbs. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your work on the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susie Reingold.
You're not Susie.
I'm vice president. Susie's president of our association.
Could you
So
please
she's
raise,
supposed to be here, but she works.
could you please raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And give your name and address to.
Let's see if I can do this right. The main concern that we have from Lakeside Villas to the north is that the slope of the land will cause any parking on the north side of the building to add to our flooding problem if it's that green area is taken away. And it would, so that's why we're against any parking on the north side. Now, the east and what Phil Haven has presented this evening is fine with us. That vault is extremely important because that is to take the excess water during the heavy rains of 3 to 4 inches and store it rather than dump it into our lake system, because that's where that water would go. So that's very, very important. The carport, you know, if they move the carport like they said, I think that would be good on that part, because it does give carport coverage. The land banking is the land banking, so when the building is sold, that's when the variances will take place, as I understand it. So the additional parking will be added at that time that's required for the building. So the parking that's there now is sufficient for the current building status. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Unless anybody has questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this matter? Sure.
At this time, having gone through our list, we will read the letters that were received. The first letter received, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, received December 11th. Dear President Argyris and Chairman Rafato, we're writing to urge you to approve the variance request before you regarding carports for the Phil Haven development to be located at 2418 West Hence. The Illinois Housing Development Authority is the main funding agency for this critically needed project, and as you probably know, resources for affordable housing are extremely scarce. We are committed to ensuring Phil Haven is a success for many years to come. We would like to take this opportunity to remind you of our limited resources under the Illinois Affordable Housing Trust Fund Program and the Home Investment Partnerships Program, which would be required in order to bring this project to completion. Requiring the additional covered parking will increase the cost to the Phil Haven project to a level that is infeasible for IHDA at this time, limiting our ability to invest in other important affordable housing projects around the state. After reviewing the parking analysis from KLOA Inc., we support the requested variance to reduce the ratio of covered parking spots in line with the previously approved reduction in parking of 53%. Residents in supportive housing simply don't have the same car ownership rates or needs as a typical rental household. This assertion is well supported by the KLOA traffic study, which includes a survey of other supportive housing developments that demonstrates just how low the car use rate is for the developments of this kind. We're pleased with the many other amenities planned for this development, such as the computer lab, community room, laundry facilities, and a fitness room, but the carports place an unnecessary financial hardship on this development and are likely to go unused by the project. We want to provide resources for your community. Please support this variance request. The second letter is written by Susie Reingold, President of the Lakeside Villas Homeowners Association. The Lakeside Villas Homeowners Association is sending this email to explain our desire to keep any parking for the new Phil Haven project on the east side of their property off Hintz Road. It is our understanding that flooding conditions that have never occurred on the south side of Lakeside Villas could occur. We do not want the Village of Wheeling Plan Commission to allow parking at the north side of Phil Haven's property. We have discussed this with our engineering consultant, James Frayne of Manhart Consulting, who agrees that parking on the north side of this property is and was not part of the final plans approved by the village and feels that this is not an acceptable solution. Further, the addition of carport covered parking is unattractive as it will reach beyond the height of the fence that Phil Haven is constructing. It will obstruct vision. Thank you for allowing us to present our opinion. We hope that at Thursday's meeting, the situation will be resolved in a manner that meets our approval. Third letter received is from the Office of the Bureau of Economic Development at Cook County. Jane Hornstein, the Deputy Director of Finance and Special Projects. Dear President, Chairman, Trustees, and Commissioners, I'm writing to urge you to approve the variance request before you regarding carports for the Phil Haven development. At this time, the need for affordable, supportive housing in the Village of Wheeling and the surrounding towns and villages has grown exponentially as more and more families and individuals have been hurt by the recession of 2009 through 2011, as well as 2013 flooding in your area. The county is in the process of considering a major investment in the project through the Home Investment Partnership. As you probably know, resources for affordable housing are extremely scarce. However, the carports create an expense beyond what the project can bear. The majority of the individuals and families that will live in the development will not maintain their own motor vehicle and will be utilizing public transportation. There are many other amenities the development will provide that are more appropriate for the intended population, such as a computer lab, community room, laundry facilities, and a fitness room. The carports are a financial hardship for which there are insufficient funds to build them, especially since they will be underutilized given the projected car ownership rates. We're excited about our current partnership with the Village of Wheeling and want to continue to partner where feasible. Please support this variance request.
That's what we received. Thank you very much. Would you please come up to the podium? Thank you. Yeah. I'll ask her if she wants to address any of those. Would you like to address any of the comments that the citizens made?
The only comments I want to address is I think I heard if the variance is approved, that it will set precedents for other projects. I think the project is unique in its nature, but as I understand, I don't have all the details, there has been similar variances approved in the past, not completely to zero, but a percentage reduction based on the specifics of each project. So I don't think by considering a request and approving the variance, we're putting precedents for a blank request in the future for other developers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time we'll close the public portion of this discussion and we'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Styron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, I'd like to make a comment. I'm all for this type of housing. I think there's definitively a need for people to have supportive housing. So, I had a cousin who used this type of facility and was very happy in it. So, I'm in favor of this. My problem is in particular with this particular site and this particular implementation. I think that you came to an equitable agreement with the village, the court, and yourselves in coming up with a plan that everybody seemed to be happy with, and now you want to come back and change it. I understand the reasons for your wanting to change it, but I guess I'd like to tell you what my major concern is, right? Is that as I think I don't have Phil, I think it was, stated, what happens to this property in the future when the use changes from a supportive housing where people don't need automobiles, don't need stuff, to one, a normal apartment complex, or I hope not, someday it gets condoized and turned into something else, you know, then parking is going to be needed. From the plans that were approved, right, we have land bank parking that when and if the need arises in the future due to a use change, that the 36 or more parking spaces along that north side will be installed. So to the residents of Lakeside Villa, at some point in time, those parking spots will be installed. Now, is it going to be next month, next year, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? Nobody knows, but I believe the purpose of land bank parking is to provide pre-approved space for parking to be constructed without any hearing, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Andrew?
That's correct.
That any future, even you, user or owner of the property can come and say, I need a permit to build 38 parking spots. And the village, because it's pre-approved on the plan, will give you a permit to build 38 parking spots. So to Lakeside Villa, you can count on those parking spots probably being installed at some point in time in the future. When? Don't know, but we're planning for that occurrence today. One of the other things that I heard in the letter from the Lakeside Villa homeowners letter was that I think they said that the parking, or maybe it was the carport on those 38 spots, will obstruct vision. Right behind those carports is a 3-story, if I'm not mistaken. The building is 3 stories. A lot taller than the roof of the carport. And I would say if something is going to obstruct the vision, it's going to be the building and not a little portion of a carport that is extending above a fence. So, you know, I'm sorry for that. The other thing is, I believe that you agreed at some point in time in the past, and I don't know if it's still part of the agreement, that you would, I'll just say, escrow some funds or put some funds away somewhere to build out the parking for the next owner of the building or whenever the use changed. Is that still in your plan?
Yes, we actually has land banking regulations or covenants that's defined by the village, and we agreed to an escrow account in order to accommodate any warranting of the parking in that area. So at the same time, that's when we also offered we could handle the carport in a similar way, where if warranted, I mean, the parking on the north end, I believe, by the village, could be asked to be put in place if, for example, there's traffic support that vehicles on the site exceed the projected estimate. So similarly, we could handle the carport the same way through our land banking agreement. And the existing escrow account that we have already agreed to, we could say, well, if you notice, or I mean, you will know more about how that's enforced in the village, if the site warrants because the vehicle use is different, then the village could come back and demand the carports. We're open to that. We've offered that.
So I don't think that's such a bad idea to not install the carports now, but make them part of the land bank process, if that's what I think you're saying, such that money would be put aside to build the land, the covered parking when and if they were deemed necessary by whomever? Is that what I hear you saying?
Well, we already agree on an amount, so what we're offering is to add language, but not necessarily increase the escrow,
Oh,
to be
well,
clear. But we didn't add the full cost of putting the parking into the escrow. It was an agreement based on, I think, Andrew, can you clarify how we arrive at the
It was, I
amount?
believe, based on an engineer's estimate of
Yeah.
how much additional pavement would need to be done.
All right.
So it was some amount.
I couldn't hear what you said. It's based on what?
The estimate was based on, I believe the engineer at the time had calculated the additional pavement that would be required to take the fire lane and expand it out and curb it. And there was some factor, I don't remember
Percentage
exactly.
of that.
I think it was 105% of whatever that number was.
Okay.
It was a number based
Yeah.
on the cost of finishing the parking that you see.
So to be clear, I am offering to add language, regulatory language, that the village could come back and request the carports, but I'm not offering the time that we increase the escrow.
Oh, well, then you're not really making any offer to build
We could
the
look
covered
at,
parking in the
I just
future.
don't have all the details right now. I mean, if we knew what the village is looking for, or the magnitude, I can make the decision now, but I'll have to get back to you on that. Because
Andrew-
I don't know what the amount will be.
Okay.
Andrew, to your point, Commissioner Stanley, if you give me a second, and to your point, would the board have to decide that?
The board would ultimately have to agree to that. The amount of the escrow was part of the settlement agreement in the end. And to change the escrow amount, the two parties would have to agree to it.
Okay, great.
I don't know if I'm overstating that,
Okay, is
But-
that,
more or less.
I mean, I would believe that's correct, that they'd have to change the escrow amount. And also to the point is that, I mean, that could be discussed because the regulatory language saying that if the land bank parking is built, then the additional carports would also be built. That would still require the amount, if whether or not they put the money in, or how much money would be added or could be added to the escrow. It would still have that requirement in there so that that funding could also be figured out in the future. That would be something the parties would have to discuss at length to figure out the most feasible option. Because you're talking about, for the land banked, the extra carports that are being removed over the vault, correct?
Correct.
That extra 57%, whatever that percentage is?
Correct.
So if we're required to put the cost of the carports in the escrow today, it creates the same financial hardship, but I just don't have the details.
Is the answer that you probably would not be willing to do that? Is that?
Correct, because then it's the same financial hardship.
And then
I mean, it's the same cost, correct? Assuming that that's the case.
Assuming that you put, if the full amount
Correct.
was required at this time. Okay. I mean, obviously, that would be something that would have to be discussed between the parties as far as the terms of the escrow agreement. If something, a lesser amount or a later date amount could be agreed to, that could be something to explore.
Right, okay. And then I have one last question that also relates to a statement made by the Lakeside Villa Homeowners Association that stated that, and I'll just paraphrase, their engineer believes that installing the parking on the north side would cause flooding to their property. I think that's the way I read the statement, and I'd like to ask Andrew, in the opinion of our engineering staff, would the installation of the land bank parking and all the pavement and curbing, whatever that may be required to do that, would that indeed potentially cause flooding, additional flooding on Lakeside Villa property?
I think I'd actually like the petitioner's engineer, if possible, to answer that. My recollection of the volume of detention in the vault was that it was sized in accordance with the future pavement, not the amount of pavement without the land bank. I believe the detention vault was sized with that in mind.
Correct.
Are you able to?
That's correct. We have to design the vault based on the pavement in there. I think, I don't want to speak for Lakeside Villas, but I think what they meant was like pavement, you can talk about, versus impervious.
Excuse me, my name is Gerald Katowski. I'm with IG Consulting, Consulting Civil Engineers. We're the design engineers for the Phil Haven project. Yes, to answer your question, any of the land bank parking, as Mr. Jennings had just mentioned, is included in our stormwater detention vault. In other words, if that pavement ever does get constructed, the vault will handle the stormwater storage for any of the impervious surface to be constructed for land bank, including storm sewer to convey that drainage back to the vault.
Okay, and I'll just ask again, has our engineering staff reviewed their findings, and are they in concurrence that the current design should not? And let me just, there might be the 1,000-year storm that nobody projects, but should not cause any additional flooding?
Yeah, the village review of this project originally was as though the land bank parking was being built. So the drainage, the direction of the drainage in the back was designed in accordance with the village standards to not cause any runoff off of the property.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my only questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Zangara?
Thank you. First, I'd like to say I really appreciate you getting rid of the carports in front of the building. And I took in consideration a meeting last week, and I agreed, Commissioner Styling here got to a point that I was trying to get at, was if that land bank parking was going to go, could we put in some kind of language that carports would be added at that time to make up for the deficiency they have now? Because reading everything, I understand that you probably won't even use all the carports that are there now. But like you stated, if that land bank goes in, we need to get that site up to date, and that's what I would like to see. So, I mean, that was my main concern. I really enjoyed seeing the parking. The only thing I have about the carports is, it's just been a pet peeve of mine. Just my preference is the concrete bases. It looks like you're doing some nice wood and everything. I know in concrete you could get colored dyes or something, just don't have this ugly concrete base. That's just a pet peeve of mine.
I think we will work on that.
Okay, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But otherwise, I think Terry took care of,
At least, I think we're looking at it, at least the ones visible to Hints Road. We don't have a solution per se, but Andrew actually also brought that up, and we're committed to making it look as aesthetically pleasing as
I
possible.
appreciate that. Otherwise, I know last week I was really saying I wanted the carports, but taking consideration everything, I really think you're headed in the right direction, but I'd like to try to see if we could do something about carports in the future if that land bank goes in. Yes. That's all I really have. Thank you.
Commissioner Dorband?
Thank you. While I wasn't here at the last meeting, I did watch, and I did watch again the video. So I have some questions for you, and to give me a little heads up, the things that weren't asked last time. This is a 50-unit development, but how many, because there's more than just a one-bedroom for all these, what is your anticipated number of residents?
Yes, I think we assume one residence for we have one bedrooms, twos and threes here, correct? Get the mix. Do you have the exact numbers? You want to come on?
If you could come up.
Yeah. I just don't want to, we assume at one and a half, I want him, his Probably more accurate, 1.5.
And
per-
my name is Steve Siegel. I'm an architect with VOA Associates in Chicago and the architect for this project. The mix, I didn't expect to be asked its numbers, but I believe it is 31 one-bedrooms, 13 two-bedrooms, and 6 three-bedroom units. And if there is a person in each bedroom, that suggests, help me with the math, 31, 26, and 18.
We always have those.
So it's approaching 80, something in that.
You have 31, 13, and 6. We usually
Right.
assume 1.5 to the ones.
Okay. So
Two,
you're at
2.
45 for the one bedrooms, call it 46. Two bedrooms, how many in there? How many half people in the?
13 in the 2 bedrooms. We have 13 2 bedrooms.
Yes, we do.
We can get you the exact number, approximately.
It's going to be
You're thinking-
approaching 100.
100. Okay, so I guess the reason I'm asking this, and that's kind of the number I came up with, even more, because 2 people could be in the 1 bedroom. There could be conceivably more people driving than what you're anticipating. Because you're saying that at the one other facility, there was, what did I see, 16 or something on the 39. Well, here we have more, and they could be doubling up. So we could have conceivably use a lot more car spots.
Yeah, I think our traffic study kind of takes up a few of our projects across, but you're right, there could be more. But I think we feel that talking big picture here, and I can get you exact numbers following up the meeting. Unfortunately, I don't have all the exact numbers, and I could dig into the traffic study on other projects. But I think we're offering here, our traffic study expected 12 here. So let's say we double it, so we're at 24. So I think what we're proposing here has some cushion in there so that if it's more, we're covered. We're providing 53%. So we're offering 28 covered parking. And I think, again, if we can agree into a language that, if warranted, just similar to a land banking situation, proven by actual usage and occupancy and vehicles, the village could exercise the request for the balance of the carports. We're open to that. What I said we're not open to is to put in the money that it costs to build it now in the escrow, because then we're at the same situation financially.
I guess I'm just concerned down the road, as Commissioner Stylen pointed out, you know, if this should change, if the situation should change. You know, there's.
But I think, yeah, it's the same with the land banking. It's no different. That's what we're trying to gauge here. If it changes, true, again, we have several projects with serving the same tenants, and we are not as concerned, but you understand that you want to protect the residents of the village. So again, I mean, I think it would be similar to land banking situation. If it changes in the land banking situation and more vehicles are noted to be on site, I believe the village enforces that you have to do the parking. It will be here, but at that moment it's proven. We're not building carports that will not get utilized. I mean,
The other thing, I guess, that's concerning me is that, as our village attorney pointed out, that you were given the agreed upon at the federal level, and you agreed to all this, and now you're coming back to us and saying, no, we changed our mind. And that kind of concerns me, because you knew going into this what you were up against. And now you're coming back saying, hey, wait, this is a hardship for us. It seems to me that it's kind of a self-imposed hardship. And I have some concerns about that. The other piece of it is that I'm just confused about, a number of things, the potential for additional parking, going forward, what could happen. And you knew when you came before this commission 2 weeks ago that you had an agreement with the people at Lakeside Villa about not putting that parking on the north side. And yet you went away and said, okay, we'll do it anyway. We'll talk about it. We'll do it anyway. You knew that. So I'm a little confused why you agreed to that when you knew you had this agreement with them already.
To be fair and sincere, that option was offered at the end of our meeting. And when I said I want to come back, I wanted to explore and consider all of the opinions here. I just couldn't make a decision at that time. I went back and we explored every option, doing all of them, changing the section, doing less, doing more. Again, when I said I wanted to continue the project was to really, again, take a moment, sleep over it, analyze it, and see how we can mutually come up with a solution that will be a win-win for both parties. I mean, I had to think it through, to be sincere.
And the last piece, I have great concern about the gentleman who got up and said, you know, if we have to put in these covered parking, we're going to diminish the project. That very much concerned me. Not only the first time when I listened to it, but the second time when I reviewed the videotape of it. And that concerns me a lot because this is our village and we don't want to see anything lessened. We are looking to raise the bar here. And that is very disturbing to me. Even that comment is disturbing to me.
I apologize for that comment. It wasn't intended to be meant in that
Yeah, it shouldn't have
way.
been said.
In addition to your comments about that we agree on a certain project and that we're not over budget and that concerns you, I've worked in real estate for over 15 years. And unfortunately, when we go through the zoning and approval process, we have not fully designed the project. So here we're talking about carports, but in every project, there's always something that has to be value engineered. And that's probably the right word to be used here. It's not that you're diminishing the project, but something has to be value engineered. And this happens all the time. We can't do everything. So if we have a budget to work with, and unfortunately the project has been developed for 3 years, and now we actually have developed sections of this carport, and we are getting real pricing today, and it is significantly greater. We still have a fixed budget. So it's not that we're going to diminish. We don't want to. We own this project for at least 15 years. We are here for the long term, and we pay for the operations of the project. So that's not our intent. We don't do this building and turn around and sell it, which usually is what you used to see. We are an owner. So I apologize for that. That's not the way I wanted to convey it. But again, we have financial resources at SCAR. So.
Let me see if I have anything else. No, I guess that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Vito.
I have a question for staff, with the land bank parking, if we approve the variance and they sell it to somebody that needs more parking, it's a condo unit, as long as that's land bank, the new parking can be built there, correct?
That's right. The way that the land banking works is the site plan is recorded along with the whatever the mechanism was that allowed the land banking. So in this case, there would be a resolution. The language of the land banking agreement would have to be included in that. The developer of the project would then record that against the property. The trigger for requiring it would be part of that agreement. So if the trigger, and the usual trigger for this is the village has determined that additional parking is necessary, and that's the trigger. That's the extent of the trigger.
And we can do that after the property's conveyed to another owner?
What you do is you record that with the property. It's a covenant on the property. And so anyone interested in purchasing that property from that point on, during their due diligence, they would see the covenant is there recorded with the property. And they would see that the village has the authority to require it.
Okay. Yeah, in that case, I have no questions.
Commissioner Powers?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad you cleaned up the parking in the front and, at least came back to us with some carports. I still would like to see the 50 carports go in. And I know the last meeting we were here, I asked about moving the storage tank to the north side of the property and was told that that could be done, but it was really not desirable. So I believe that option is still there, and I still think those carports could go in. So the land banking of carports, I mean, that's an interesting suggestion that I never really thought about. But I worry about the future of, like the gentleman there said, what happens down the line, and I have to protect what's going in the village. If you guys leave and there's no carports there, then, what do we do? I know you expressed the financial hardship, and I can understand that to a point. And I guess what has me a little bit concerned is that you said that if you had to, you would consider to like take amenities away from the property and like potentially cheapen it. I mean, that's got me a little bit concerned, and I would hope that somehow would be enforced somehow if this did go through. So while the financial hardship is concerning to me, I still think there's a way to move that tank on the north side and put the carports in, and that's where I stand right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have to watch that video again because I really have to see what word I use. But again, I apologize for that. That wasn't the intent.
You did. Andrew and Ms. Maluzzi, what can we do with this land banking? I think I hear a general consensus that if we could land bank the carports, this might go through, that we know that they're going to be there in the future if the need arises. What could we do? Because I'll be honest with you, ma'am, the only potential hardship that I could potentially see here would be where the carports are over the vault. Anything else? And I think Commissioner Dorban said it, that you went in knowing what was offered, what was put on the table, and that was self-imposed. And the financial responsibility to me is not a hardship. Mm-hmm. It could be a hardship to your project, but in reality, it was you buying into this, mm-hmm, figuratively, and knowing what you were going to do. You mentioned here, and I'll get back to the carports, you mentioned here, and I think staff put a note in here about exceeding the Illinois allowance. What does that mean? What does that mean to us here?
The IDA has financials limits for construction costs based on the different scenarios or per unit in general. And the hard cost on these projects, with everything included, is exceeding that limit. The way we explain it to IDA is why we're exceeding the limit. It's unique items on this site or code requirements that are unique to this village. When we construct a building here versus the same building elsewhere, what's different? So that's what it relates to. Why is this building more expensive? And we actually included the explanation on our answers, and that's what they mean too. I mean, we're exceeding their hard construction costs for a typical building of this scenario, just to keep it big picture.
So I guess from where I'm coming from, why wasn't that done before? Why wasn't that done? These costs, you knew going in what it was going to be and what needed to be constructed, but yet you continued on, mm-hmm, and the courts have said, here's what you're building.
Correct.
But now, as Commissioner Dorban indicated, you're coming back now and saying that we can't do it. Okay,
Correct.
that to me is not a hardship, because it was self-imposed. You purchased the property and you had an agreement, okay? But to that point, Andrew and Mallory, what could be done to land bank these carports that they could be built in the future if needed?
You know, I don't think that you have a major distinction. It's unusual to land bank the car. I would say our typical land banking is done in an industrial where you have a possibility of the large industrial building changing hands in such a way that the new owner of that building operates differently. They have more people per square foot. They have a different manufacturing style. They do, instead of large machinery, they do small machinery. So there's some variation is given to the parking, and there's a trigger for the land banking. So that's the more typical land banking agreement that we have. I don't think there's anything, and Ms. Malusi can correct me on this, but I don't think there's anything that says you cannot add a carport to that. It's an agreement between the two parties, and you're recording the agreement. What I think is the question, and I don't know that we have any particular guidance on this, the question I think then becomes the escrow. The petitioner has stated that they would not be able to escrow for that amount up front. So if the board, on receipt of a recommendation to include carports in the land bank, if the board were then asked to work out a new agreement, the question becomes what of the escrow at that point?
Does there have to be an escrow if you have that covenant, or can you record a covenant without an escrow?
You can record the covenant without the escrow. The agreement right now has an escrow based on the construction
correct.
costs. I'm sorry, did I say it wrong? The existing agreement references a construction cost based on not having the carports. That's where the number was derived from. So the question then becomes, if you're going to renegotiate the amount of the escrow, how do you factor in including carports in that?
Okay.
Commissioner Stylin?
Mr. Chairman, just maybe we can clear this up. I would ask that you poll the commission to see if they would be agreeable to a condition that carports be land banked like parking spaces are land banked at a cost calculation similar to that was approved for the land bank parking agreement. Does that?
It makes sense. I'm not going to repeat that, because I
Do you remember how
can't,
you arrived
but
at the escrow?
I
So
understand.
whatever those percentages,
Yeah, so,
Just to clarify, there are land banks, does the village approve land banking agreements without escrow? Yes.
Yes, there are
Okay.
land bank agreements without escrow. The covenant operates the same way. The covenant's there. Any potential buyer would see the covenant exists, that there's a trigger that the village can determine that the parking is not adequate and cause the owner of the property to be required to install the remaining parking.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say that the escrow currently is to ensure that the money is there for the land bank parking. As far as additional carports, because that also would probably, that's a different determination than necessarily need of parking. That could also be, it could also be requiring that if it's determined that they're needed at that time, they would need to be built, and the money would have to come from somewhere. That's a reserve currently, and that amount would have to probably be negotiated.
but, I mean, as long as we have a current agreement for cost calculation methodology for the land bank parking, I'm just saying, let's use that same methodology for the future construction cost of the carports. And
can we do,
Terry, can you explain to me what, I guess I'm kind of confused. Are you saying that you're saying 100% of what you consider the cost would be? Is that what you're saying?
what was the calculation methodology that was currently approved?
I would have to go, this has been several years now. I believe that it was the engineer's estimate of cost of construction.
At today's
and-
cost.
Yes, and then the agreement was to apply a certain percentage increase to it. I believe it may have been 5%.
But it was just a one-time cost, not every year?
It was to place in an escrow account that amount and to hold it until such time as it was needed.
Right, so I think, some money for 12 years, 15 years, 20 years in the future, whatever amount calculation they agree to today probably won't be enough to build, but it'll be enough to get the future owner or whomever started on doing something. And I think, if I remember correctly, Andrew, you might, or Mallory, maybe you might remember, the reason why we talked about an escrow was because the number of land bank parking that they were proposing was such an unusual amount over and above what we would have normally land banked for other business concerns, that we wanted some kind of assurance that there were funds available to.
Yeah, I'm just saying that given how that was negotiated and how that is part of a side agreement, the escrow amount, that requiring the same methodology may not be appropriate in this circumstance, but to put in something that they would have to, the village and the owner would have to reach an agreement on what, if any additional money in the
Right.
escrow would be added, that would be a better condition than requiring the same methodology as the parking, because they're different.
But on the other hand, we're just a recommending body
Right.
to the corporate authorities,
Correct,
and
but
I'd
that would
rather.
give time to go back and negotiate prior to.
Exactly,
board
to
meeting.
work out the real details when it comes time
So
to.
maybe appropriate would be if the commission, and I'll take a poll, is condition in agreement with land banking the carports with an agreed upon negotiated increase to the escrow account
For the specific construction of
of the,
Yes.
right.
carports.
Okay, so with that poll, Commissioner Steilen, would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Commissioner Zangara?
Yes.
Yes,
Commissioner Vito?
It depends on the amount. I mean,
But see, we don't set that. We
That
don't
was-
because
set that.
it could be enough to
zero.
kill the deal, though.
It could be zero, or it could be something else.
Right, or it could be
Right.
$1 million.
And that's the next step, I would guess.
I guess if it's the only way to get to the next step, I'll have to say yes.
Commissioner Powers?
I guess the only thing I would have a question with is, we don't care about how it's constructed or anything like that, or if they were there and then we were going to say, okay, we need to take some of that land banking, it would have to look like what the ones that are going in look like?
it's part of the
That's
existing
part of I would assume that's part of the,
approved plan,
approved plan.
just like the parking,
Right.
just like the parking allocation is.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, but the plans have, what we had 2 weeks ago and what we got now, as far as car construction, is different. So I'm okay with that concept, yes.
Do you have a comment?
I'm just kind of not clear. Can you repeat
Well,
what?
okay, so what
I'm not clear
what we're saying is that the commission is in agreement to land bank, along with the parking, the carports. Okay, but that the increase, if there is one to the escrow, would have to be negotiated with you and the village board,
All right.
not, we don't negotiate that. Is that a prop?
Right,
am
I would say
saying
that we're
correctly?
not saying,
What it is.
that we could then
Okay.
negotiate what, if any, increase to the escrow account would be then required
All
for
right.
the land banked carports. We're not setting a number, but that would give us a chance to
Right.
talk about what could be agreeable with both parties with a reflection that may be something, but you were saying that you couldn't do the entire cost of the extra carports, but to maybe have some kind of, so that way it would give us that chance to sit down and talk.
All right.
Without
Sounds
putting
good.
that amount in now, because,
All right. We don't understand the details. Okay.
right.
Thank you. That clarifies it.
But so it would be a condition on the variation, it'd be the extra, the difference.
Step. All
Yeah.
right.
No, the difference of the numbers, the cardboard numbers, I mean.
Commissioner Steilen?
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to have it definitively stated somehow that the carports are built when the land-banked parking is built, so that they can't say, the village can't say, oh, well, you have to build 10 more parking spots, but they don't have to be covered. Or you have to go and cover 10 of the old parking spots, but you don't have to unland bank any of the, I would like to have a site plan that shows where the covered land banked parking is going to be, and that when the parking is unbanked, if that's a correct term, that the covered part is also simultaneously unbanked. Does that?
I guess we'd have to look at the rate, because obviously covered parking is at a different requirement than parking. So the covered parking is 1 per unit. So if if they developed like 15 of these spots, obviously all 15 wouldn't then necessarily be covered, because it would have to be at a rate or debate. It'd be similar to the requirement now for land banking when it's met upon the demand. And so if the similar demand is then met.
All I'm saying is, how many land bank parking spots are we talking about? Do you have?
We have 36.
So 30, and how many north side parking spots are land banked? 38?
Right now, we're proposing 28, and we are required to do 50. So,
22.
yes,
I better look
22.
at the
So I
current
guess
plans.
what the village attorney, I think, was trying to get to is like we can say a ratio, the right ratio
Yeah.
of requirement.
Now you've got me completely confused because I think I see 36 land bank parking spots along the north side.
Correct. Well, we're talking now carports versus land bank spaces. That's what she was trying to make the
Okay.
distinction.
And how many covered parking spaces do you want not to install?
22.
Okay, so if I said whatever it is, 10 through 36,
Correct.
those parking spots, if they're ever built, will need to be covered. Would that be, whatever those 22 are, starting at number 36 and going backwards? Because if you want to build...
It's quite confusing. We agree. I think what we're trying to get to is the requirement for parking is greater per unit than the requirement for cover parking. So we agree to the right ratio.
No.
You wanted to say, well, I'm not sure I understand that.
I don't want you to say I'm going to build 12 spots and not do covered parking.
Okay.
If you want to build 12 spots that aren't covered, those are locations 1 through 12 on the site plan, which means you will have to construct the entire road in order to build the 12 uncovered parking spots. But if you only want to build 12 spots where it's convenient for you to do it, to fill in the existing parking.
Lucy, do we have to get to specific spots?
I don't know if going to the specific spots is, that would be something within the land banked parking agreement that would be set forth, and I don't know if it would more likely be if they needed to build 10 new land bank parking spot based on the need, then of those 10, 6 would be covered parking spots. That would be the more appropriate ratio based on the code versus designating certain number of spots as the land bank parking.
I hate to disagree with you, but on the site plan, do we have every single land bank parking spot labeled and numbered?
Yes, we do, but
I would like to have the covered parking documented on the site plan where it will be installed in the future, such that when that parking spot is unland banked, that the covered portion of it is unland banked as well. I mean, not to be picky,
No,
but
I mean,
I'd like
that's
to
one
have it
way
on
to
the
do it.
site plan so nobody ever has to come back and say, I want to put a covered here, no, I want to put it there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I want it to be defined right now where it's going to be such that there's no problem ever again.
So to be clear, what you're proposing is that if there is land bank triggered, that covered space is also
Designated.
triggered and is placed on 1 through 12?
Well,
that-
it could be,
I mean,
I
we
guess it
don't-
wouldn't have to be through 1 through 12. So see how on the land bank parking, 1 through 36 is designated, that it would be designated which ones would be covered parking of the 22 that need to be built, whatever sections you guys would designate as covered parking sections, so that as you develop that section, you would also develop the covered parking with that section.
Exactly.
So however you'd want to divide up the 22 needed, the covered bank, in sections. So then you wouldn't have to get approval to move them around.
And that covenant would be conveyed to a subsequent landowner? and they
Yes, it would all be this,
they
I
would
would
be
think that the
subject to
covenant
that?
would be as part, as part of recording on it, and I would think a site plan is part of it.
And Terry, you were also thinking too that even though there's 36 in the back, if they need any parking, the first parking will take up the land banking will be, the first 22 of those, however many are in the back, will be covered. Was that your?
I'd like to see the proposed site plan. Where they
That's-
want to do it, how they want to do it. Let's look at the site plan first and see how it works out. But again, that's just my recommendation. I don't know if the other commissioners would.
Well, I'm trying to get Andrew, you have a condition that's written.
Getting there right now. So right now, the way that this is worded, the condition is that the remaining 22 covered stalls would be added to the land bank agreement with carports matching the style of the first 28 covered stalls, subject to the negotiation of any impact on the land bank escrow between the corporate authorities and the developer.
And what if you added, and that the 22 carport sites are identified?
The location of the 22 covered stalls to be noted on the site plan.
Yes. I guess the question is, do you agree with that condition?
Yes, I mean, again,
Well, I mean, you don't
we're
have
going to
to.
further explore what the dollar amount is associated with it. Yes, I had a question. Is there a way to vote on two requests? Like, I want a sense if we weren't to agree or no.
It's
I
either-
think what's being suggested, and I don't mean to put words in the mouth of the commission, but what I'm hearing is that the commission is comfortable making a recommendation on this variation, provided that the covered parking is added to the land banking agreement that's being drafted. So the negotiation of whatever impact that would have on the escrow amount is beyond the authority of this commission anyway. So what they're suggesting is that if they make a recommendation to the from the plan commission to the board, what they'd like for the board to see is a site plan that specifically indicates where those additional covered parking stalls would go, so that that could be part of a land bank agreement. And then the board would, subject to its discretion,
Determine what the additional
discuss
escrow is.
if any additional escrow would be required for that, based on the construction cost or any other
Okay.
factor.
I understand that request, and I think I'm in favor of that. Just, obviously, we don't know what the amount is, so is there a way to take a vote on two? I'm just curious, on our proposal or no? I mean, is there a way to
We can vote on
say,
it without the condition? Without the
correct?
condition, with just the 28? Okay.
But then that would be it?
That goes to the board. I don't think we can,
Yeah, I think that once you've made a recommendation.
recommendation, we can't make two recommendations.
Okay, that was my
So we
question.
can-
Just because, given that I don't have all the
We can
data.
vote on it, we can
I'm
vote on
trying-
it without the condition. But and then we vote on it, but
I hear
remember,
you.
we're a recommending board,
I understand.
so we don't have the final say.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If indeed they're going to install all the covered parking land banked wise, then there is absolutely no need for this variation at all, because they are really doing a site plan change with,
Land banking is considered a variation. To land bank parking and not construct it is considered a variation.
okay.
So the option is with the condition
Or,
or without. If you want us to vote
Yeah.
on it tonight.
I understand, I'm just, we're trying to move the project forward. I mean, I wish I had a lot of time, so I'm just here on the spot trying to make a quick decision.
So procedurally, what the commission is looking at right now, there's been a condition of approval suggested. If this motion is made, the plan commission, the consensus I've heard is that the condition of approval will be part of that motion. If the commission makes a motion and it fails, my understanding is that they can make a different motion, but you wouldn't have two different recommendations. You end up with one.
With one, okay.
You could possibly have a failed motion, and I could be incorrect on that, but I believe you have one recommendation that goes to the board.
Correct, so I could,
And right now,
I
the consensus-
apologize, but
the consensus
this
of
is
the
again new
commission-
information. So I could vote on the original request, or,
Sure, that's option.
You can ask for a continuation to
I know.
discuss this.
I want to move on.
Because-
I think I want to move on. So I think what I heard from, I want to clarify, I came here with a request, I wanted to understand if that will be denied. If we make that motion is denied, can we go then to the next one to vote on the one with the condition and move forward the one that?
That's it's up to the commission. The
Okay.
commission, somebody would have to make a motion, and another commissioner would have to
Okay.
second it.
Right.
So that's my question to Jim. I will, because the second option will continue with the conversation and it's not specific, we don't know what the amount is, I would like to understand if my original request, what the vote is on my original request. If it's denied, definitely I want to consider the one with the condition. But we're trying to move this project fast,
Sure,
we need to start
understood.
construction. So if I can make that request, great. If not, then I will do the
I would
condition.
have to,
The commission should really only vote on
one thing.
one thing.
Yep.
And the thing is, I mean, someone would have to, I guess, really the roll call vote should only be on the one. If a motion is made and no one seconds it, then the motion doesn't carry and someone can propose another motion. So, for example, if a motion was made on the original request without the condition and there was no second, that means the motion doesn't carry. And then someone can make a motion for the variation with the stated condition. If that's second, then a roll call vote. But to do two roll call votes, I think is inappropriate. To do two full
Okay.
roll call votes. So it's up to the commission how they want to proceed. But if a full roll call vote was done on the second one and it didn't pass, and that's the recommendation to the board.
If-
Because it would be a recommending to not approve the variation. If
So-
it doesn't carry.
Right.
So if the first,
The only way to do two votes is if the first motion doesn't get a second.
right,
That's not a
Right.
vote. Do you understand? So in
So
order to
you
vote
can
on
go through
something-
but I can get a second. We can go through the,
so if we start with a motion to approve your original request,
And-
somebody makes the motion, and there is no second,
Then the motion
got it.
motion
fails.
So we can
So
do
then the
that?
next motion would be with the condition,
Okay,
and if there's a second, then there's a vote.
okay.
Okay? But if somebody,
But if the first motion is made for the variation without the condition, and someone seconds it, and a vote is taken, and the recommendation is negative, we cannot then re-vote to do it with the condition. So
Okay.
that's the distinction.
Okay, let's
So-
vote on the condition.
Okay. I mean,
I get it. I get it.
There's a
No.
difference, but because someone makes the motion and seconds it, does not mean they have to vote in favor or against that.
I'm clear. Let's vote with the condition.
Commissioner Stylin?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask Andrew if there are any other conditions in addition to the one that I proposed, and I don't know if any other commissioners have any conditions that they would like to add as well before we go and jump into a motion.
The motion right now references, the motion itself references the plans. So I would like, that should be clear.
But I mean, are there any other staff conditions that are?
No, it is the one condition. It is worded as follows, that the remaining 22 covered stalls would be added to the land bank agreement with carports matching the style of the first 28 covered stalls, subject to the negotiation of any impact on the land bank escrow between the corporate authorities and the developer, with the location of the 22 covered stalls to be noted on the site plan for the board's review.
Just one last question. In the event that the petitioner and the board cannot agree on a dollar amount, what happens with the petition? Or is that a concern of ours?
I don't believe that's a concern.
I don't believe
Okay,
that's a
great.
concern of yours because
Thank
it
you.
would be up to the board if they would then want to approve the variation without the condition or without all of the conditions recommended by the Plan Commission. Again, this is a recommending body.
Great, thank
So
you.
if there's no agreement reached, then it would be up to the board to determine how they want to proceed based on those
Great.
conditions.
Thank you. Yes.
Can we have any type of discussion regarding the construction of the carport, or was that decided in
He
the?
he just said it in his condition.
If you have any questions about the construction and clarification, this would be the time to ask.
But I thought you said that it
You
would
had one.
be,
As of right now, the plan that has been submitted
base.
is part of the motion. If you have questions about what's on that plan, this would be the appropriate time to ask them.
I guess I'm concerned a little bit about the material. I mean, I think 2 weeks ago I saw a hand-drawn one, we had brick, and it doesn't seem like we have that anymore. Seemed like it's been scaled down. That's.
And it looked like we had some lattice work as well, or something.
That was a proposal for treating the side of the carports that address the street. And
Just to
you know,
clarify, this is the rendering that was included with the approval, the previous approval.
That's correct.
And last week, we were getting the section a little further. But there is a specifics on these plans that are approved, and now we have revised it more detail because it was requested by the commissioner. So we have gone further and outlined more materials, and this is
It
what
is-
we have here.
But this is intended to reflect the perspective drawing that is presented, or was part of the agreement.
Sorry, I went the wrong
passed.
way there.
This one.
So this drawing was part of that agreement?
Right, that was approved.
All right. Then I have nothing more to say.
And this drawing is currently part of the motion.
Well, I think Commissioner Zangara would like to see some colored concrete added to, in place of the natural. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
I think
no
we can,
problem.
I think
Yeah.
we can agree to that.
Yeah.
great.
And I had one other question with the carports.
No, go ahead.
Commissioner Zangara.
Okay. Is there any lighting underneath that carports?
There needs to be, yes.
Okay. Will there be?
I'm sorry?
Lighting under the carports or in the parking lot?
I think you need some. We have not studied it to the degree to locate them and size them and stuff.
Okay. Well, I just want that to be put in there, that there's some kind of lighting in there, whatever it is, like you said.
Right.
Okay.
And it would be towards the ceiling so that it's.
It's out of the
lighting would
way,
be
just,
directly on what's beneath it and not
correct.
casting out.
Well, I think we
Perfect.
comply with the photometrics of the parking lot.
So, Andrew, could you please read the condition?
First condition is unchanged. Condition number 2, the colored concrete is utilized for the base. I should probably elaborate on that. The colored concrete is utilized for the base for each support. And the carports include lighting.
So we have a motion.
I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One
Commissioner
point.
Vito, you asked a
And
question.
it's again for Andrew and Mallory. The condition that Commissioner Stylen put in about designating the 22 spots, that they have to put that on the site plan, and that will be binding on, I guess, any subsequent owners. I mean, how set in stone is that if a subsequent owner wants to change that around? Because my concern is, I think even this group that's in there now may find in 5 years, if they want covered parts, that they're utilizing a different part of the building than they thought they were differently, and it may be a problem. And if they sell it to ABC Condo, there may be a whole new gut out of the building, which makes whatever they put on the site plan now before the thing's even up completely, kind of illogical in terms of its placing. So I'm just worried about that part of the condition, if it's going to hamstring changes. If all it is them coming back to the board or the commission saying, we want to juggle these around, and we just say, okay, fine, I'm okay with that. But if it's going to be kind of binding, then that wouldn't be good.
The agreements that I have read through, that we have on our other land banking, include some language of the what if the two parties agree on a new design. So they would typically reference whatever site plan approval is required. There's language in some of them for a partial build out. The village can decide 20 out of the 100 need to be done. So the agreement that would be placed in front of the board for their consideration could include language to address the future flexibility.
Okay.
And wouldn't that be also considered most likely a minor site plan?
In all likelihood,
Because
yes.
Depending on what wanted to be changed, yeah, it would probably be,
If
so
I'm
it would
not-
be a site plan amendment, because really that's what's being submitted with the,
Just a minor, come before us and change that around.
Okay.
I think last summer or the summer before, a factory came before us and wanted to move their land bank up on Northgate, wanted to move their land bank parking from one area to the other, and it was just a minor.
It was kind of a hybrid, actually. They had to,
Oh,
they still had to go to the board.
Yeah.
Because
Well-
the board had to approve the resolution to change the land bank agreement.
Yeah.
But yes,
It's-
it has been done. We have seen a land bank agreement get adjusted.
Yeah, okay.
But I think just to simplify things for Joe, it's so if this petitioner or some future petitioner wanted to build a portion of what is already approved on the site plan, all they have to do is go get a permit. They don't have to go through us and
Yeah,
all this rigmarole
Okay.
again.
all right.
So we have a motion on the floor for 2014-22 with the red conditions.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Vito, second by Commissioner Zangara. Mr. Secretary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Zangara,
Yes.
Commissioner Vito,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
This is with the
the
land
condition.
banking, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Commissioner Stylen, I vote no. Commissioner Dorband,
Okay, this, I just want to make sure I understand. This motion includes all the conditions, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
No.
Commissioner or Chairman Rufato.
Yes.
So that's 4 yes and 2 noes. And for the record, can I explain why I voted no?
Sure you can.
Would you mind?
You can say whatever you want, sir.
Okay, I believe that they failed to meet condition number 2 of the variation request, in that the hardship of building over the detention can be offset by building in the defined land bank area. And that's what the variation request was about. And I also believe that for question number 3, the petitioner designed the building and the requirements were defined, and building over the detention storage area could be offset by building in the defined land banked area.
Commissioner Dorban?
Aye.
And please understand that it passed 4-2.
Correct. Thank
They
you.
were just stating why they voted no.
All right.
And I would have to agree with Commissioner Styland for the same reasons.
Thank you.
Motion to close?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You'll have something to sign? I did close the public.
Get rid of land bank.
Oh, I've never done that.
Cover parking.
Okay, I'll just have to remember that. Okay, because we've never done that.
Something that
It's in your rules.
I think.
Is it coming out?
I kept looking and,
Tell you a story.
so far along.
Andrew?
Come.
I just don't understand why we couldn't put and not use the
Because there is some kind of outside stuff here for the folks to, I don't want to say have or something like that.
On to, oh,
Outside,
Beside this whole area too, no rain, all this.
there's no road over there.
But if they're gonna do all this, there would eventually be a road.
I don't think the road is land banked.
Say that.
I don't know, see, I think that side thing is a fire lane.
make a motion on next one.
We do need a motion to continue, and I believe I
I think
have.
the road ends there and this alone.
January 8th, please. Actually, do we have any public hearings already scheduled for the 8th that we should avoid for Title 19? We're okay for that? So date certain of January 8th, please.
Okay, I'd like to have somebody make a motion to continue docket number 2014-16 to a date certain of January 8th, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of minutes, November 13th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes, November 20th, 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I was here.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining. I was not here. Okay. Other business, approval of 2015 Plan Commission meeting calendar. Mr. Jennings?
I have not made any changes. I did neglect to ask for a motion when I had this on the agenda at the last meeting.
Okay, so do we hear a motion to approve the Village of Wheeling public hearing calendar for 2015?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4 motions made there.
Yeah, a lot. Other business, Mr. Jennings?
Have a interpretation of the sign code.
Yes.
We have a business which has placed a sign on a structure that is not necessarily a building per se. The sign code does not directly address this type of sign installation. We have reached out to the business owner to notify them that we would be looking at this interpretation prior to deciding how they should proceed with an application. The section in question, I've copied onto the slide here. I believe that this is probably of course, the Plan Commission can make an interpretation on another section, but the one that I think could possibly apply here would be permitted sign locations, specifically on non-residential multi-story buildings. The note is that wall signs shall be located below the bottom of the second story, except that wall signs indicating the building name or the name of the primary occupant shall be permitted above the floor level of the highest floor of the building. There are other sections within the wall sign regulations that I do believe give the Plan Commission the ability to make an interpretation that a sign is permitted. However, this is not, I could not recall a commercial structure that isn't a building, just off the top of my head, that was similar enough to this. So my opinion is that it needed an interpretation of the commission for us to be able to advise them.
Do we have any, I mean, this appears to be a silo of some kind, is it?
It is a concrete plant. It's the mixing portion of the plant, I believe.
Do we, I mean, we have a lot of silos, storage containers in town. Do any of them have names on them? Outside of the village water tower that does have a name on it?
You know, I was trying to think of that earlier today. There was we have a couple of nitrogen tanks that may have something on them, but I don't know, without going and visiting a few of them, if they are the company name that owns the tank or the location itself. So by that I mean a lot of the tanks are made by a certain company, so there may be some identification on them. I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to give you bad information.
Aren't those silos the ones,
I don't remember
A.O.
any of the
Smith.
building before us that had.
A.O. Smith makes silos, and I've seen their name on silos, I think, in the village.
It is possible.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, is this the owner's company name, or is
Yes.
this the?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a new owner of the former Meyer material.
I don't know. I would say that, you know, if the existing things that we have are brand names of towers or the maker of the thing, that would probably be okay, but I would not want people to start displaying their names on towers all over the place unless the village water tower is one of these things, so.
I assume that the previous owner of this did not have their name on it, correct?
I don't recall it having any identification on it.
Well, if they didn't have their name on it, I see no reason why they should have, why this should be allowed.
But do we have, can they come to us and ask, what would we have a variation on then?
Well, I think the
I
first
guess would
question
be the
here was
question.
whether or not this would require variation. There are, aside from this section of the sign code, there are other sections in the same permitted locations of wall signs. There are other sections in there that would note that that a wall sign can be located at the primary entrance of a unit or building. So that I didn't think applied quite clearly. Most of the discretion on signage comes under the additional signs. So once you have identified the primary entrance of the building, the Plan Commission has the discretion to permit signs on other portions of the building. So there is some flexibility there, but that's, again, additional signage on top of the primary sign. So in this case, I thought that this particular section was probably the one that required the interpretation. Is this a multi-story
Andrew?
building for the purposes of the code?
Why do they want their name there? I mean, it's obviously obvious what they do, and it's a very niche company. Why do they need their sign on there?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I mean, they own a property adjacent to the railroad. I'm imagining that they want to identify it for anyone passing by it. Some of their other properties are also similarly located, So I would only be guessing.
But do they have other signage on their property that states, you know, an entrance sign or exit signs or monument signs?
They installed I have not been by the town side, which would be the south entrance. I don't know for sure. I do know that on the north entrance, which is the primary truck entrance off of Dundee Road, they installed a sign that's considered a prohibited sign, so we've been in contact with them about that, with their options for requesting a permitted sign. But they have installed a fence-mounted directional sign directing trucks to enter off Dundee.
I don't know. Again, I'll just go back and say, in general, if doing this would allow other people with silos or those, what do you call those things? Those storage bins or tanks? I think that would be a bad precedent. And then I'd also say, if they were to come in with a variation, what kind of hardship could they show that would meet our standards for requesting a variation?
Well, there is a section of the wall sign regulations that says every unit is guaranteed 20 square feet of wall signage. They have no wall on which to mount that. I suppose you could make an argument on that, but I mean, that's really up to them to try to figure out which section are they even getting a variation from.
Do they have an office there?
There is a building inside the site.
Good, put the sign there. Thank you.
Are we voting on something?
No, we're looking
No.
for an interpretation.
To try to give them guidance. If they're going to apply, is this something that they could apply for as a wall sign under that section? Or would they need a variation to even request this, as I think what I would say we're asking for?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the code.
Yeah. I don't think this fits.
I don't either.
I really don't. It's not a, yeah, doesn't fit. There's no primary occupancy there. It doesn't fit. They're going to have to, I know how Commissioner Steinle feels. I know how Commissioner Dorbad feels. Commissioner Zangara?
Do we have, I'm just throwing something out there, because I've seen it, if you're, airplanes, do we have any regulations on people doing stuff on roofs? Or signage? And I've seen it, if you go down 90, you see Morton Salt or something on a roof.
I can't say that it's come up.
We do have something about above the roof line, though, right? That would probably be considered above the roof line.
I guess it's a question of where is it visible from. If it's the wall sign that is mounted above the roof, I think is more the intent of our code. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I have seen buildings. I've seen a Target that had its logo painted on its roof. I've seen a few things like that, but it's not something that's come up here. I'm not sure.
I just went on the internet and put their name in there. Their logo isn't half bad. I mean, if they would have probably come up with a logo to put on the front, I think that's, just the name out there is kind of, I don't know. I would have rather seen them come and say, okay, we'll put our logo out there. At least it would have been more attractive than what they have here.
But okay, taking the appearance of this, taking away the appearance of the sign, does what Andrew have here fit the interpretation of that sign? Taking away the sign itself, does it fit this interpretation? Commissioner Dorbad, does it fit this interpretation? And put your microphone down so.
I'm thinking. I'm not exactly sure. Explain to me what you mean exactly, what are you saying, interpretation?
Okay, right here, at the bottom here,
Right?
this is
Right.
what Andrew and Brooke found in our code that might fit this sign being approved, taking this sign and using this code right here, interpreting that. Does it fit that? Is it indicating the building name or the name of the primary that should be permitted above the floor level of the highest floor in the building? Or it said below the bottom of the second story, except that wall signs indicating the building name or name of the primary occupant shall be permitted above the floor level of the highest floor in the building. So that's above. So take that wording, and interpret that against the sign. Do they fit? Or do they have to come in for a variation? That's what Andrew is looking for.
Well, it's not a building. I guess that's my problem. This is not a.
So then it doesn't fit.
Right, it's not a building.
That's what I'm looking for, right.
That's why I wanted more clarification
Right,
with your,
okay.
where you were
That's-
going. No, it's not a building.
Okay, great. Commissioner Vito?
Yeah, I don't think it's applicable, but I don't know how they could get a variance from something
Well, it's
that's
going to
not-
be,
that's not
I think it's
applicable.
going to be up to them to find out where they're looking for a variance.
Okay.
Is how they, I think they have to go about doing it. Is that correct?
But what makes it unlawful if this isn't the applicable code?
Signs that are not permitted are prohibited.
I see. So there's a catch-all for anything that's not.
It is a-
I see. All righty then.
It is a sign.
it now?
Okay.
It is a sign.
It is a
by
sign.
the definition of the code.
Okay, so every sign
But
is
it is-
prohibited unless permitted.
Correct.
I see. Well, yeah, that's not a building. That's,
Commissioner Powers?
I believe it's not a building.
Commissioner Zangaro, I don't think you've answered.
Not a building.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I know you
Thank
skipped my-
Commissioner
I knew you'd
Dorman,
come
you're
back.
right. It wasn't really clear what we're looking for there. And I agree, it's not a building. So yeah, exactly.
And to Commissioner Stylin's question, I'll double check and see how the water towers are handled. I'm not 100% sure. I know that we've repainted some. I don't believe we processed them as a permit, but there may be something in the code that addresses government buildings and non-buildings.
Any other business, Mr. Jennings?
That's it for me.
Commissioner Powers?
I have nothing but happy holidays, everybody.
Commissioner Vito?
same thing. Happy holidays.
Commissioner Dorban?
Ditto?
Commissioner Zangara?
Same thing.
And Commissioner Stylin?
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. However, I do have one question for staff in regards to Laundry World. Doesn't have anything to do with the sign approval, but the entire parking lot seems to have been dug up. I mean, really dug up. What happened over there?
The last discussion I had on this would lead me to believe that what has happened is the available water at the site was not a high enough volume of service, and the main is across the street. So to access the main and increase the service to whatever they needed, 2-inch, whatever it was they needed, separate from the fire suppression system, they had to dig a pit to bore under Schoenbeck to get to the main. That is my best guess based on the last discussion I had with Public Works about it.
But it looks, I mean, they did build that thing, but it looks like they tore up all the existing concrete. Jim, looked like they took out all the concrete in the whole parking lot area.
The only thing I saw was where they were trying to bore, but also, didn't they remove, they had to add parking, so they removed,
It's on the other.
they removed some of the grassy area to add parking too, if you remember, because we had land banked parking. But I truly believe that they needed enough room to put a machine in there to bore underneath.
Wow.
And it's cheaper than probably shutting down the road, getting the state involved, and all those wonderful things.
And you couldn't have just built a little trench to,
Well, Yeah, it is huge, because I think you got to get a big machine in there to bore through.
Okay,
It may be in close enough proximity to Dundee Road that you would have needed the state to do it. I believe Schoenbeck is a county road, but if you needed both the state and the county to sign off on it, maybe this was their best alternative.
I don't know, for anybody that saw it, I mean, that must have been a very expensive thing to do whatever they did. I mean,
And it's, yeah, it must have been. Anything else, sir?
nope, that's it, thank you.
But speaking of Laundry World, so I was going to ask you before, they're not doing anything with their monument sign?
Not that I recall. I don't know that they've.
So are we
applied.
taking it down?
I don't know that they have an intention yet. The strict letter of the sign code would say that they would have to, but once we inform them of that, they may say, we'll apply for something.
And by strict letter, don't they have to undo the light art portion of the sign to some blank panel or?
The building's currently under construction, and I suspect that once we tell them that the strict letter of the code requires the sign to be removed, they will find a purpose for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.